Well, welcome back to the Agora Cast. We are so excited you're here. I have two incredible guests in front of me. I have a young woman that I love. She's a daughter to us. And then I have the most incredible person in the world, the most incredible woman I've ever known, my wife of almost 28 years, like a month and a half away from 28 years, sitting with me. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to start with my wife.
You already introduced me. I'm Misty Brooks. I'm married to Jason, and I have been at Agora since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I'm just excited to be here to tell some stories, especially about this beautiful young lady here.
That's awesome. I'm not going to ask you what year that was when you're 16, because then people could calculate our ages, but I won't say that anyways. Okay. All right. We have another special guest.
Well, I'm Angel Beck. I've been at Agora for 19 years, almost 20. And I work with the kids, the youth, the whole pantry, and mentoring, and anything else that I'm able to do at Agora.
Yeah. It's weird. You said Angel Beck for a moment. I had to think about it. I keep forgetting you got married about a year and a half ago.
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Wow.
October 7th.
That's amazing. Gosh. Velasquez for all those years. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to tell a story about you to start in a minute, but it's probably the most famous story I've ever told of Agora. Like, I tell everybody this story. It's about a rough angel but what God has done is just an absolute beautiful thing, and we love you. But before we jump into that, let's take a look at some pictures, because we got some pictures on the screen. So Nate, if you'll throw up that first one. Yeah, what do y'all see here?
Cowboys.
Oh yeah, look, you have been a faithful fan all those times.
Faithful.
Yes. When there's days we did. Look at that. That's Bubba right there. Trent Ackerman right there. Isn't that crazy? He was a little boy. And then there's Angel right here singing. Misty, what do you remember real quick before we go any more photos of all this time?
Oh, it's just good memories. I mean, just such good memories. I see Josie there right by Angel. I see Sonia and Angie and my nephew singing with them. And just such fun teaching them how to do things. I think that was for an outreach that we were going to do.
It's hard to believe. That's probably that picture is probably about 18 years ago. Seems like a lifetime for some people, right? By the way, one note is Angel has been here from day one. So I'll say this real quick. You can go to the next slide real quick. So when we started the youth ministry, my father-in-law started the ministry in 1989, but my wife and I felt God leading us to start a youth ministry down in the inner city with Edgar. And I think that was about 2003, 2004. And day one, when we did that, we knocked on doors, passed out flyers. Angel came on day one. So we met Angel the very first day we started youth ministry. Look, there's Trent, a little bit older. There's Austin Ayers. Trey.
Austin.
Oh, that is Trey.
Bubba's right here.
Bubba's over there, and there's Austin.
They're doing a human video skit and an outreach. Yeah. Probably the back to school
at the Guadalupe Plaza, right there.
Or maybe street camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at those vintage shirts with the bubble.
Yeah. You can go to the next one, Nate. Look at Angel, sweet Angel. I don't know why it was a green picture, but at the same time, it looks pretty cool. Young lady, look at that. Aww. Oh my gosh. I remember that face. What does that bring memories to, Misty?
The first time I met her, I even told her, because her smile was just electric. It was so big, and she was just so friendly and so inviting. Yeah. And I can just remember telling her, my goodness, your smile just lights up the room. It's beautiful. Don't ever stop smiling. And she was like, yeah. She liked it. She always smiles. Look at that.
Look at that, always smiling. Gosh, that's a Christmas party. Oh my gosh, that's in the background.
I didn't even notice.
You can crop that out right there. So that's 2006. Oh gosh, Nate, that is not nice, Nate. Yeah, that was. We will go scroll out just a little bit on that, because look at the date on the bottom right. Keep going right there. Look, 2006. Wow, that's when that was. Long time ago. And then, I'm excited to talk about this. So, while you have an amazing smile and you've always had a loving sense about you, you've also had, how do I say? Yeah, you were ready to throw down. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you call that? I know the words I would use, but like chip on your shoulder, attitude, maybe didn't let anybody push you around. What would you call that?
I don't know. I mean, I would call myself, well,
Not now. I'm talking about when back then.
there's this thing that I used to do, Missy, I don't know if you remember, but I used to just take off my earrings. That was it. There was no word to it. I just start taking off my earrings, and that's how you know. That's
go.
what.
It's about to happen.
That's all you know. I used to be like, don't hold my earrings.
Don't mess with me.
So I wouldn't put a word per se, but more when the earrings come off, that's when you know.
I will
You know.
cook you. No, I just kidding. Anyway, okay, well, let's start off. So Angel started coming at the very beginning of the youth ministry. And I don't remember how long, I really don't know how long it was after you were here. But what I remember is one day I'm in the middle of preaching. So I'm talking about Jesus. I'm talking about his love. There's a full crowd. There's probably 70 to 80 students there. And in the middle of my preaching, these two girls get up, run to the middle aisle, and they start fist fighting. And not cat fighting, not just, no, they are throwing down, punching. It is rowdy. Kids just flock around it in a big old group. And I remember trying to, move people out of the way. And at the same time, there was a mom outside who, I don't even know whose mom it was at this point. It wasn't Rosie, your mom. No. And, but they were just throwing kids out of the way. It got to the middle, and I'm thinking, okay, great. I got somebody else tell me break it up. And instead, she's yelling, hit her, pull her hair. And it was just chaos in that room. And, oh, my gosh, it was crazy. And one of those girls that got in that fight was Angel. Yeah, I know. It's like, duh. No, one of those girls was Angel right across from me right here. And what do you remember about that day, Misty, out of curiosity, and then you, Angel, as well?
Seriously, mass chaos. And I remember the situation. There was a girl that, I mean, they just didn't like each other for some reason. Yeah, and it was just so tense all the time between you two. If you even looked at each other, it was like, don't look at me. What are you doing looking at me? What's your problem? And it was like a constant struggle. And so I don't know what happened this night. I think it might have been about somebody's boyfriend or something like that. I don't know. And I know, right? And we won't say names. We've already said Angel. Anyway, so they just looked at each other from across the thing, and they just had it. They had it. And so they just jumped up and just ran at each other. Yep. And all I can remember is just everybody crowding around them and just, we didn't have videos like phones back then.
Oh, it would have been
on
TikTok or Facebook or Snap. I don't know. Yeah. What do you remember about that day?
For me, it was very long ago, but as I hear both of y'all saying, I do remember what it was about. I mean, that whole day was very stressful for me as it was because I was in sports and I was trying to be good, I wasn't really trying to get in trouble. And then this girl just kept pushing and pushing. And I'm just like, I'm done with you. And then she wanted to fight me during school, and I didn't want to fight because you'll get suspended. Yeah. And so
let's fight during church.
Well, see, back then, I know. So back then it was more like, I was already fed up with it. And I just couldn't take it no more. So the time when we actually connected eyes, it was just like, okay, we're done. We're doing this.
That's it. Doesn't matter if somebody's preaching. It don't matter. Doesn't matter. It's down. Yeah. And she felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who won the fight? No, you don't have to answer that.
I'll tell you, I want Jesus, so I want the fight.
There you go. There you go. You got the KO, the king over your life. There you go.
I've always I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've always wondered what brought you back every time. Like, why did you keep coming back? Was it because friends were coming? Was it because of the things that we did there, like games and hanging out and stuff? Was it because of a boy? Or it could have been about all of that, but you kept coming back over and over, and I was just curious as to why. And so did the other girl. I mean, the other girl came for
long time,
for years. What was it? What did it feel like when you came to 24/7?
So when I came to 24/7, it was like I felt safe. I felt not that I wasn't safe at home. Yeah. I had a great mother. I have a great mother, and it's just that the choices I did behind that was more of, no one would know, I'm going to do that myself. But every time I came to Agora because of a boy, yes. And then he broke up with me a week later, and I had Edgar and obviously Misty just really were right there, like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful. Oh, you have great talent. Hearing Edgar tell me you're going to do so much great things. I guess I love the positive attention that I was getting. Not that I didn't get it at home. My mom was very great with that, but I knew that I wanted something more, and I knew I needed it, and I just fell in love with the atmosphere, with the preaching, with the cool creative games that we never got to do, because in the West Side there isn't stuff like that. I believe that now I believe Agora brought a culture that was fun and it was inviting, and I wanted more of that. I wanted to not just feel loved at home, but feel loved everywhere else, and I got that. I got that from you, Misty. I got that from Edgar. I got that from anybody who just influenced me, you know, and
You just wanted more.
I did, and I felt very at home.
Yeah.
So Agora was my home.
Yeah.
My
awesome.
home, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Well, I'm going to get back to that in a minute about that home, because we're going to talk a little bit about what is it like being in the West Side, and that is part of contributing probably to why that felt so unique. I know I've heard you say that and other things, but a couple of notes for the listeners. When we said 24/7, people were like, what is 24/7? Well, originally when we started the youth ministry, the vision we had was sharing God's love. And so we had named it 24/7, as in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then our tagline was sharing the never-ending love of God, because our heart was we believe when people experience the love of Jesus, it transforms hearts. And so, and then Edgar is a reference to my father-in-law who started the ministry, who is the founder of Agora, Claudine and Edgar Ackerman, founders of Agora. He passed away 12, 13 years ago with pancreatic cancer, but he was a great man that started this work, and he had a major influence in your life too, right? Well, let's go on now with the story, and then we'll come back to some of that. So you get in this fist fight, but then you just keep coming back, and you keep coming back, but then something changed at some point. What changed? You were coming for a program and feeling this warmth, and then something else transformed in your life. What was that?
Well, I would tell you this. As from going to youth night 24/7, then going back home was like I told you, I felt good there.
Yeah.
But when you went back home, it was a different story. Before then, my mom didn't know Jesus. I mean, she was Catholic and stuff, but it wasn't the nicer version of my mom. It was more like always being talked down to by my whole family, telling me I'm just going to be like everybody else in the West Side, going to be everybody I see.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like that. I knew my mom loved me, and I knew that what she was doing was encouraging me, because she didn't want me to be like her other kids. No offense, not that they're bad or anything, but she wanted something more for me, and I was just tired of all the hurt that I kept getting. Back then I broke my leg, and I started gaining weight, and so I would get made fun of for my weight. And then my sister, she was an addict, and she was a prostitute, and my mom said, do you want to be like her? And I said, no, I'm never going to be like her. And I will be told by just regular people that I knew, like, I am going to be like that. And I wanted to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
So Agora invited me to a mission trip, one that I've never been to before and didn't know what it was like. And that first year was cool.
And do you remember what church hosted that?
There was a lot of churches.
No, it's CBC, right? Wasn't that the first one you went with CBC?
No, yes, it was CBC, and I went to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I went to Puerto Rico, yes.
Yes.
That was the first year, and that was absolutely incredible. I was like, wow, this is a great thing. I didn't know following Jesus could be like this or stuff like that, and seeing the goodness of it, of what we can do, you know. And then the second year, I think this is what really like changed my whole point of view of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be like.
Hello, everyone. I want to take a moment and invite you to our Agora Golf for Hope 2024 at the Dominion Golf Course. On Monday, October 28th, we're having our annual golf tournament to raise funds for our Agora Construction Program. The Agora Construction Program trains, mentors, empowers, and disciples young men from the inner city to give them a brighter future. Would you consider golfing with us? Or maybe you want to buy a hole sign, or maybe 2 to 3 hole signs, or maybe you want to be a title sponsor. You can do this by visiting agoraministries.com/golf. Let me repeat that. That is agoraministries.com/golf. I want to let you know we could not do our ministry without your financial support. We thank you so much for partnering with us and listening to the podcast.
So I was at a street camp, and we're doing a worship service, and there's this band from Desperation Band, that's what it was called, and there was a song called "I'm Ready Now," and I remember I was like in the back of the building, and I had one of my youth leaders, her name was Juana. She came back and she was like, you can lift up your hands during the worship. I was like, what? I ain't gonna do that, and I was just like, that's a little weird. But I'm looking at everybody, and they had their hands up, and she's like, it's just a sign of surrender, and I'm thinking in that moment, like, man, I'm going through so much, I'm doing this, and I don't want to be where I'm at right now. And she was like, yeah, you could just do it. Go ahead and lift up your hands. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I close my eyes and I hear the words, I'm ready now. I'm ready now. That's part of the song. And when I opened up my eyes, I was in front of the stage. And that was like the whole thing, that how it led to where I'm at right now with
That's awesome.
with Jesus.
So you kept coming because you felt a home, you felt a love, you felt, you gained friendships, fun. But then you had an encounter with Jesus.
Right.
And you surrendered your entire life.
Yes.
And what changed after that?
I mean,
how did it affect your life?
I mean, it changed everything. I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't like full frontal hardcore, like, oh, here I have Jesus. Yeah. My life totally changed. No, it was a lot of hard. It was very hard for me. I lost a lot of friends when I started sharing Jesus to them. My family too. It was more of a, I don't want to hear that, you Jesus freak. And I'm just like, oh, I never knew the outcome of what it was like to follow Jesus. Yeah. I just knew what I wanted with him, and I wanted more. And if I knew from what I would hear after, like, I would go to church and stuff like that, people knew about Jesus, their life can change. And that's what I wanted for my family, was their life to change as well. Yeah. If I knew my life was starting to change, I wanted the same thing for them as well. So it wasn't easy at first, and but I still think the decision I made was the best decision ever.
Amen to that. Well, we're so excited you did. And so let's take for a moment, we'll look at and we'll talk about later that angels in ministry and all that you do and all that stuff. But talk to me about what it's like in the West Side. Because for me, I always tell that story about you getting in the fist fight, because I would explain that, I had been in youth ministry for many years. I at 19 years old was the first time I started youth leading and youth pastoring. And this was years later. And my wife and I had even worked in Dallas area, Royce City, and other places, and youth pastored, and never had we had anybody get in a fight. But it was early on in the ministry, and though I knew the West Side is different, seeing that happen was like, yeah, this isn't normal place. And so then I started finding out all the things that young people are struggling with, and the families, and it was an eye opener for me, because it was such a visual one, but it was also spiritually. But I'll talk about that in a minute. But for you, what was it like growing up in the West Side? Talk to me about that.
Well, for me, growing up in the West Side, all the things you explain are just normal things. Yeah. Normal things that I saw, normal things I experienced. And
like what?
Like for example, I live downtown, not like right in the center of downtown, but I live in downtown where there's a lot of homeless people. Yeah. And waking up, seeing homeless people, but like, this is not the norm. If you were to go somewhere else where you see them doing things they're not supposed to do at night, out in the public, just
prostitution,
addiction. You can see them walking literally with the string around their arm and shooting up, just like that.
And that was literally across the street from the house, because there's that lot across there. Yeah,
it was right there in front of me. And even when I walk, like you can see them. Like it's normal. It was normal for me. I grew up like, oh, okay, that's okay. And it's just, it was more of a when people explain something different, I'm just like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. This is okay, you know. Yeah. But it was a culture. It was a culture, and I grew up with that. Not like physically in my family where we're doing it or something, but like seeing it.
Yes.
And
it's all around you.
It's everywhere. Yeah. It's everywhere, and that was the norm.
Yeah.
That was the norm for that.
Fighting was the norm.
Yes.
Arguing, just having an attitude. I know I've heard this 1,000 times of people I've worked with in the inner city and youth is you didn't let people push you around. So like it's taught, you better step up.
Right.
You're going to be a wuss and everybody's going to beat you up, right? I mean, like,
yes.
so.
To defend yourself.
Yes.
That was a big thing.
Yeah. And so, Misty, what do you remember about Angel and when she started really experiencing Jesus and started singing and leading and just, what do you remember about some of that?
I mean, as somebody who knew her from before, to seeing how Jesus had impacted her and changed her, it was such a joy. I mean, I still see her crying now. I when I see her singing and leading worship, and when I see her leading the staff and leading the women and the food pantry, I just sit back and I'm just like, God, you are so good. Yes. You are so good to change her and letting me see it. Yeah. And so I'm just proud of you. Oh, gosh. But I do know that it was a hard road for her, and I prayed for her a lot. I would go to her home and pray over her home, and your mom would ask me to go pray over the house. I loved it. Yes. And saw things, you know, when I would go over there, and she would tell me about it, and I was like, wow, that's crazy stuff. And she's like, it's okay.
Yeah. So normal.
And I was like, okay. And then we would drive down the road, and there would be drug addicts, you know, passing the road or coming up to our windows. And she would say, just don't look them in the eye. Don't look them in the eye. It's like, we're okay. And but I would say that it is normal, and you do get desensitized to it sometimes, especially if that's all you know. Yeah. And I know that we've talked before, and we've said there's brokenness everywhere. There's sin everywhere. There's addiction everywhere. But on the West Side, it's not hidden.
It's right out front.
It's right.
Nobody's ashamed of it.
Right. Yeah. No. In fact, some flaunt it. Yeah. You know, and
we like to say crazy
the anger and the
crazy is everywhere, but in the West Side, it's not. They're not ashamed of it. It's right out front.
Right. Right. They don't hide it, and that is why I love the West Side. I mean, it's not. It's not a normal thing to be able to witness people's hurt, you know, just visibly out in public. And at least you know exactly what you're getting into, and you know exactly what they're needing. Yeah. And are able to pray for them and help them. So that's why I love the West Side. But those are just different things that I thought. She's saying that.
A side note I just thought about, because you talked about it's a culture of things seen, but you have been so different because God has moved in you. And you talked about even your family, like, you Jesus freak, you know what I'm saying? And it reminded me when you got married, you know, almost a year ago, when one of your family members came up to me.
Several.
He was a youth in the ministry with you. So he's in his 30s now. And he came to me and he was so excited. He goes, man, I've never been to a wedding. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've never been to a wedding. I said, never. He goes, no. He goes, you know what? Angel's the first one of anyone I know that's done it right. This is the first wedding I've ever been to.
Breaking generation.
Yes. But that shows such a culture of you have changed that. And ultimately, we know it was Jesus that changed that. But wow. And so others saw it, family saw it, and you just kept pursuing Jesus. Yeah.
And your mother has been impacted.
Yes.
Your mom.
From when I remember when she would ground you from AGORA. Do you remember that?
I would hate it. I wanted to go.
Yes.
Or you didn't do something at school or whatever. She was a wonderful mother to you. She invested in you. She loved you, but she didn't know Jesus. And so whenever she would punish you, it was from AGORA.
Yes.
I thought it was so funny, but she's not like that now.
No, she knows what Jesus is.
Sweetest woman. And that's the one thing that has been clear before where she was to now is she has always loved you so dearly and always, So you have a different culture of where you're growing up. You have a different culture in the home. And then you start finding Jesus. And by the way, at one point, you even part of some gangs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why? By the way, why would you get into a gang? I just out of curiosity. For those that aren't in the inner city,
Okay.
why would you even get into one?
Well, for me, the gang that I was in, I mean, for me, I think about it now, gosh, it was so silly. It was so silly. But back then, it was more of a safety thing, more of a protection, more of fitting in as well. And back then, I had a lot of anger, and I was very selfish and stuff like that. And I didn't know what I was doing, you know, and that was a whole different culture, too, as well, gangs. It was more of a, if you're part of a gang, you're it. Yeah. And I wanted to be it, you know, and that's what I got. And it wasn't like, I guess I wanted more of a lot of things, you know, being a part of a school that I was able to be popular in, but that wasn't a fulfillment. Yeah. And then joining gangs to do whatever it is we did, that wasn't a fulfillment until I gave my life to Christ. Amen. That was the fulfillment. And that's why I say now, like, it was so silly. I'm so sorry.
Awesome.
But it was normal. I mean, it was a rite of passage. It was what everybody was doing in order to get by and to survive, basically, especially junior high, you know.
That was
always a struggle for everybody. So
I want to talk for a moment because there's a lot of people that struggle with, you know, they're carrying these. I don't want to say a chip on the shoulder, but I mean they're struggling to control their emotions. How about that? And I know when we started first working together, I'm not always easy to work with. So I tell you that. I admit it. I know it. I'm very. I push. I want the best. and I can drive people hard, and sometimes that can be misunderstood and or just be hard to work with, right? I mean, yeah, because I'm going to say, like, I need it this way. We got to have this. We got to have this done. And so you and me have had a few, you know what I'm saying, working together. And I remember you used to just immediately show all your emotion. It would just, like, it felt like, and it wasn't, but it felt like some of the littler things would just make you go off. But now I see you as a woman who is just, your process, you're praying, I've seen you go back and say, okay, the Lord said, I need to say I'm sorry. I need to apologize. And I've had to do that to you as well. But I want to know what changes, because some of that was, again, you grew up in this environment and that culture, but it has taken a process.
Right.
What would you say to others who have that struggle themselves and still aren't able to sometimes be emotionally control what they're doing, take a step back, process it? What would you say to them, or what changed in you to, you know, that you're from there to here?
Well, I would say because growing up with not knowing how to control the anger, growing up being so defensive or protecting who you are and stuff like that, it would just come out. But growing and just really knowing the word more about patience and kindness and stuff like that, I didn't know it then. And when I started doing ministry, it was like, well, I'm still not fully knowing who Jesus is. So I don't know what he talked about. So when those situations will happen, it was so easy for me to react.
Fall back into what you knew.
Right. So go back to what I grew up with, because that's all I knew. Yeah. But over the years and over the time, I started reading more and started hearing more about what God says about stuff like that, or even seeing people, I'm gonna be honest, seeing family, the way they react. Yeah. I didn't want to be like that. I mentioned that arguing was something that was normal for me. Yeah. This don't need to be the normal for us, you know. Yes. So growing up and really stepping into that time where, you know what, I don't need to do this with you. Yes, there's situations that we're in the heat of the moment, but we could still show love and grace. Absolutely. Just like Jesus showed it to us. Yes. And I realized, like, this is the true. Yeah. You know, this is what God gives us. This is what he shows. And that's how I felt. And that's how I was taking my time to really, you know what, let me just think about this. And so you don't always have to defend yourself. You don't always have to prove points. You don't always have to do that. you're a different person now. You're renewed in Christ because, you know.
Yes.
So that's where I started really stepping back. And you know what? That's my fault. I am the one that said this. I need to apologize. And that's where, that's how I felt. That's how me really just taking time to really know who Jesus was, realize that no matter how we are, no matter how we, it's like Jesus. If we sin, he still loves us. If we hurt him, he still loves us. And I know if I put my flesh aside and apologize, or if I say I'm sorry or something, it will be better.
Yeah.
So it's not like a whole big thing where we're just like, you know what, someone said I can't do that and that is it. But it was more of like I need to do better as a person, as a follower of Jesus, and but I love you, and I love everybody. You know, it wasn't because you were hating me or anything, but it was a teaching moment.
And it's a good thing you learned the word "I'm sorry" because you're married now. And oh my gosh, Misty, how many times have I had on a daily basis? Yes, I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry, baby. No, you got to learn that in marriage.
Yeah.
Word. Yeah. Ultimately, you got to learn how to understand what you're doing, why, and show love and figure out how to be better and stuff like that. And God has done that in you. Let's take a minute, Misty, and let's talk also with Angel about what have we seen now? So back then, Angel was a wonderful, sweet, loving woman, but yet, you know, just those things we're talking about were there. But today, she's a leader. She has went through an internship, and then she's been on staff, and she has grown in not only in her biblical understanding. She's a reader. You love to read.
I do.
And then now, your leadership has just, even in the last 2 years, I feel like has just doubled in your ability to lead and lead well. What have you seen, Misty, and what are what are some of the things you've seen her doing leading and what God has done in her now?
All of those things are evident in everything she does. She's been a consistent staff, so she's seen several staff come and go. And so the way Angel is our trusted staff, we can trust her knowing that she understands the heart and the vision of AGORA and the DNA of what we feel God wants to accomplish through it. So that's invaluable.
Yeah. And
I've seen her grow in it. And because of her upbringing, there were struggles, but thank God. Exactly what you were saying. It was gradual, but it was evident. It was a growth. Little by little by little, you would just, you would get mad, and then you'd be like, no, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to apologize. They didn't mean it, or whatever. And that was huge from when, you were younger and even, young adults. I won't say how old you are, but I have seen you grown and, but spiritually growing, it has just been crazy, especially in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
She has just exponentially, and you can now feed into people and you can speak into them and you can tell your experiences with them and change their point of view and how that they think of things. And that's just a joy to see. Yeah.
So you're you and Leanna, but you're the senior lead of Food Pantry. Roger and Debbie oversee. You run it, though. You're the day-to-day organizing, planning, get everyone. And then Leanna's working and learning from you. Like I said, you've done every ministry there is in the AGORA. But you also are part of our administration and our which is a lot of work. Am I right?
Is.
Yes. And then you mentor young girls from our community, and then even working with their families. Tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean to you that in some ways a young woman that, went through what you went through, or you're going through what you went through, and now you get to actually walk beside them. Tell us what that means to you.
It's a blessing. One, I know my life was changed to someone who really just impacted my life. Example, Misty. She really poured into my life, but she didn't grow up the way I grew up. But she was able to put herself in the situation to make me feel that I was so much more, and really encourage that in my life. For me to mentor this one young lady was would see myself in her. And the same situation that I would go through, she was going through. And it was so easy for me to encourage her and share with her who Jesus was because of that impact that Misty shared with me. And it worked so well. It blended. We were like this together. And because I built a relationship with her, not just impacting her life, I was able to reach her mother. And being able to reach her mother, I'm not a mother myself. Like, I don't physically have kids, but just the words that I can give her and share with her, encourage her, it starts to change. And when things start to change, that relationship starts to form. And that form becomes that where I can easily come in and start sharing why all of this is happening. I think it's just absolutely incredible. I love mentoring. I love, just because I have a one-on-one, I love sharing with other young women as well. But seeing that there's hope for them and that it's not the end for them, even though I hear it so many times, like I'm nothing. I'm not going to be nobody. There is hope for you. And I'm a walking billboard of that. And there is people who are just like you that came out of it. And if they can do it, you can too. And I think that's just the blessing of what God can give you. And I'm truly blessed and honored to be a part of that and being able to do the same thing to other young women as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Misty,
You've influenced several girls.
Oh, so many.
Yes.
And your family. I mean, you have nieces and nephews that you invest your whole heart into, and that makes an impact. You bring them to the kids' things. You bring them to the street camps, and they get to see Jesus working in other people, and it shifts their mindset, and it's something that you got to experience, and now you're passing on to they're your children. And they're part of you. So,
well, I will say this, one of those awesome things that others are seeing too is that you have a godly marriage. You have found a godly man. And Misty and I have had tears because we love you so much. And you're a daughter to us, you know that. And thinking about that you found such a godly man, and that's such an example for your family, that you guys now, and an example for the West Side, that you can have a long-term committed relationship in God's eyes and then invest in others and show love. And I mean, that's beautiful. Yeah. So, Misty, Angel, before we close here in a minute.
Prayed for him a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I prayed for him too. I never thought I would get married. To be honest, I really thought I did.
Conversations we have, I'm like, just wait.
Yes.
Wait.
And the Lord said, I got you.
I got you. Yeah. Anything y'all want to close with before we say a prayer? Before we close?
I mean, maybe I just want to encourage and just know that the Lord is capable of doing all things if you let Him. And I truly feel like I was those incapable people that couldn't be changed. I truly felt it. Even when I was living as a missionary, there's times where I was like, there's just no hope. But I think the words that's being said, having faith as a mustard seed, as small as a mustard seed, God can move. And once you actually let Him move, He can start doing. And He did it.
Well, that's a great way to close before we pray, and is a reminder to some of you out there. You have family, you have friends, you have others, or maybe you came from similar circumstances, but our God is able. When you surrender your life, He brings change. He brings transformation. He brings hope. He brings life. And Angel's a perfect example of that. Came with the raised fists and now is just laying her hands on others and praying for them and loving them. And our God can do such an amazing thing. We are just honored and loved that, quite frankly, people are like, how do we do sometimes the ministry? We do, and we change from some scary circumstances. Went through a lot of wrestling with God coming and doing this full time. Yet we get to have an angel here every day as a representation of why we're here. I don't know if you know that often we feel that you're a picture of why we're here, and we get to walk beside you even in ministry. So it's a beautiful thing. I don't think I can say anything more. Why don't you close with some prayer? Oh my gosh. And to pray for Angel and before we close.
Jesus, we just thank you for all that you have done, God. You are so good. It is so evident how you have just transformed and made this young lady such a beautiful soul to just share your love and your hope with the people that we all love in this room, God. God, I pray that you continue to let her grow closer to you and seek you in all she does. God, I pray for her influence and everything she says and does, God, just be a representation of the witness of what you have done in her life, God. Bring her favor and blessings in doing so and in everything that she does. Bless her and her husband and her marriage, God, and her sweet family, and especially her mother. Bring healing. Yes. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Well, thank you, Angel, for being here. Thank you to my amazing wife, who I'm excited, the first podcaster with me and the first of many more. Angel, we'll have you back some other time to talk about some other things. But thank you guys for joining us. And Nate, thanks for running the production. We appreciate it very much. So God bless. Thank you for watching the AGORA Cast. Would you please subscribe? That way you know when we post a new episode or content. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what spoke to you in the podcast, or if you have a prayer request. And if you'd like to support the ministry financially, you can scan the QR code or click the Give button now and help us continue to serve the poor and those in need for our Lord Jesus. Thank you.